So basically, you're laying halfway down, and then you have two cranks in front of you that you use to propel the bike. Everything is the same as a regular bicycle. The shifters, the brakes, everything else is interchangeable. It's just a different format. So that's kind of what we emphasize, is that it's all cycling. Some people use their hands, some people use their feet, but it's all the same thing.
That's Josh, sharing his insights about the hand cycle, an adaptive bike designed for individuals with limited leg mobility. While these three-wheeled recumbent-style vehicles are more common in Western countries, they're still quite rare in China. But a group of people are here to change that. You're listening to Footprints. I'm Bob Jones. In this episode, we'll dive into the story of Joshua Dominick, an American expat who has spent more than 2 decades in China. As the founder of the non-profit project Krankin Thru China, he's dedicated to helping people with disabilities discover new adventures and foster connections.
我叫谭家旭，来自美国。My name is Joshua Dominick. I'm from the United States, New York State. I've been in China about 23 years, and I'm a translator, editor, but I also do a lot of non-profit work here in China.
Better known as Lao Tan among locals, Josh speaks fluent Chinese with a strong Beijing accent. Just by his language skills, it's hard to tell he's from the West. Over the years, he has seamlessly integrated into the local scene of the capital city. Since founding Krankin Thru China in 2013, non-profit work has become a significant part of his life. Together with his friend Dominick, a wheelchair user from the US, Josh set out to bring adaptive sports to more people in China facing similar challenges, and their journey began with hand cycling.
So we had the idea to kind of share our experiences, bring some of the equipment over that we could, and expose people to the possibilities of doing adaptive sports.
They traveled to different parts of the country, encouraging individuals with limited mobility to give hand cycling a try.
Then we got to know a member of the disabled community here in China.
During their first visit to Shanghai, they met Wang Feng, a wheelchair user from the city of Zhaozhuang in Shandong province.
When he was 15, he basically was fishing beside a river and all of a sudden couldn't stand up.
He contracted acute myelitis in his teenage years, which damaged his spinal cord and resulted in the loss of leg mobility. For years, Wang struggled with his new reality, often isolating himself and avoiding social interactions. Gradually, he began to embrace his life in a wheelchair, finding ways to support himself. Before meeting the 2 American expats, he never imagined cycling could be within his reach again.
And then when he saw, what Dom and I were doing, he was very, very interested because he was like, this means I can get out into the world. Because by that point, he had only really been in Zhaozhuang and Shanghai. Hadn't really gone anywhere else. So when I said, you want to become a part of this, we need to travel, we need to go places, he was very excited. And we, took our first trip to Qingdao, just him and I, and we ended up, finding accessible hotels and kind of seeing how everything would work on the road. And then by the time he got the bike and we went to Yunnan, set off from Shangri-La, he had actually not had time to train. So he just basically got on the bike. We spent 2 days kind of teaching him the basics. And then we were on the road for 450 kilometers.
In 2015, the 3 of them embarked on their first long-distance ride from Shangri-La to Dali in Yunnan province, a region renowned for its stunning natural scenery and rich ethnic cultures. The journey on the road opened up an entirely new world for Wang Feng, who was thrilled to be part of the project. Through this adventure, they gained a deeper understanding of hand cycling and strengthened their friendships by helping each other and overcoming various obstacles. This cycling experience also sparked their passion for bringing more people along on their journey.
And then in 2016, we invited 3 or 4 more people. My dad even came.
The following year, they welcomed several more participants for an even longer ride through Yunnan province, covering about 750 kilometers from Dali to Xishuangbanna Dai Autonomous Prefecture. When they reached this southernmost region of the province, they connected with local people with disabilities, learning about their lives and challenges they faced.
We could do something in that area. And then in 2017, we kind of exploded. So we took a trip from Xishuangbanna and went all the way to Beijing. So that was a big ride. It was 5,800 kilometers. We spent 106 days on the road, camping, meeting with people, going to rehab centers, going to bike shops, so that the cyclists could actually see, oh, this is another way of cycling, and that they could get exposed to that as well.
The 3-month journey took them through a dozen provinces and cities. Not surprisingly, their unique bikes attracted a lot of attention along the way, and the reactions were mixed.
So generally, if a kid, maybe a kid that's like under 10, or maybe even in their teens, see the bike, they're like, wow, that's so cool! Wow, what is that? So they're genuinely like excited and kind of really curious about the bike. If you get people that are maybe from a smaller town, maybe a bit older, maybe in their 30s or 40s, they look at it and they're like, what is that? So it's kind of like confusion almost. And then when we say, oh, we're a group of able-bodied and disabled cyclists that are doing this trip to create awareness, they're like, what? It's so tiring. Why would you do that? They're like, they don't understand the concept of challenging oneself and reaching out to people and promoting this kind of a sport.
Josh says their aim during the trip was to dispel the misconception that people with certain disabilities are no longer capable of doing certain things.
We try to, show people in China that whether it's the community itself or the general public, that this is possible, that, people with disabilities are just that, people, and that they have the same desires, ambitions, capabilities that everybody has, but they may do it in a different way.
For these participants, they showed a strong curiosity and interest in trying their hands on these adaptive bikes.
What I observe is that when a wheelchair becomes your everyday method of mobility, you're kind of limited in a way, whether it's, stairs, whether it's, a curb that you can't get up, or whether it's a door you can't get through because it's not wide enough. All of these things that kind of limit your scope of mobility, your environment. So when they get on the bike and they can get some speed, they can feel like, they're moving in a relatively free way. It kind of opens up that window for them and gives them a different experience.
But it was easier said than done. One can only imagine the challenges they faced along the way. Obstacles and difficulties were present at every turn. Options for accessible hotels were limited, especially in small towns, and most accommodation had rooms located on the second floor or higher. So Josh had to piggyback members with disabilities upstairs and bring their wheelchairs and bags up for them.
There was one place we went to.
Josh recounts their visit to Huangguoshu Waterfall, one of the largest waterfalls in China, located in Guizhou province.
We knew that it would be a challenge from the beginning, but we didn't know how much of a challenge. So we got to the ticket gates, and they were too narrow. So we ended up having to remove the wheels from their wheelchair and push through and then reattach them after we got through. That was the first challenge. Then right after that, there were about 15 stairs to go up. So we went up the stairs, and we went through the garden area. Then we got to the part where you actually go down into the ravine to see the waterfall. And there were about 4 or 5 stories to go down of stairs, and then a very, very long escalator. And then when we got down to the bottom, there was a boardwalk, so a wooden walkway that about every 50 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters, had 2 or 3 stairs. So the purpose of that was not to say, we just want to do it because, but we wanted to see, 1, if we could overcome that challenge, and 2, to show people that it is possible. with the proper skills, with the proper cooperation between myself and our disabled friends. So I think that experience really kind of showcased what we're all about. It's about reaching your goal and finding a way to do it.
Over the years, the group gradually expanded into other sports that were once thought to be impossible, including rock climbing, surfing, and paragliding. Josh also organizes weekly swimming sessions in Beijing.
It also opened my eyes to a different way of doing things.
He says his engagement with local communities at the grassroots level has transformed him in many ways, giving him a fresh perspective on life.
So even when I go out on my own, I notice things. So I notice when, a ramp is blocked by some bikes, or I notice when the elevator is out of service. And I think, if somebody comes and it's not available to use, or there's something in the way, then, if there's a bike in the way, I might move it because I'm thinking about this. If there's, an elevator that's out of service and, I see someone who needs it, I might say, would you need some help? I can help you get to where you need to go. Or at least find a member of staff that's willing to, come out and help them with that. So I think it's just about awareness. And that's how my mindset has changed.
In China, there are about 85 million people with disabilities. Among them, over 24 million have physical disabilities, making this the largest group. As the country intensifies its efforts to improve living conditions for individuals with disabilities, Josh advocates a barrier-free way of thinking, urging awareness and inclusivity in all aspects of life. Josh recalls that his early interest in the Chinese language can be traced back to his high school years in a class called Global Studies.
My teacher put a number of newspapers above the blackboard. There was Arabic, there was German, French, Spanish, Chinese, and a bunch of others. And I thought Chinese looked really cool. I thought it just looked like a puzzle to be solved, so I decided to buy a teacher self-Chinese book. And I learned by myself, and I basically listened to the tapes and tried to figure out the characters on my own, and I thought it was fascinating, so I continued studying. And then when I got to college, I started taking Chinese classes properly and came to China to study abroad my junior year.
In 1998, he visited Beijing for the first time to study at the prestigious Peking University. Josh says it was also during this time that his personality changed. He used to be quite introverted, but after coming to Beijing, he was able to open his heart and explore the vast world of social interactions.
Because I met people from around the world, made a lot of Chinese friends. And
his proficiency in Chinese made him the go-to person for help among his international classmates, assisting them with opening bank accounts, hailing taxis, and ordering food. His interactions with local friends and connections with people from around the globe allowed him to experience the collision and blending of diverse cultures. In retrospect, Josh says Beijing was still in the midst of major infrastructure development back then, a stark contrast to the city today.
I remember when I was at Peking University, you still had those kind of, what would you call them, kind of extended buses, and those didn't have air conditioning. And I remember them being it sounded like they were going to fall apart because the roads were very bumpy and kind of not very well maintained. So you had a lot of potholes. And when those buses would go over them, the whole bus would shake. And then the windows were these sliding glass windows and they would rattle in their frames. It still kind of is a memory for me, yeah. Very interesting. Now, the buses are modern. You have many of them are electric buses.
Not just buses, subways too.
At the time, the subway system only had 2 lines.
From the early subway system, which had just 2 lines, one linking east and west, and the other a circle around the old city centre, Beijing now boasts over 20 lines that crisscross the city, making it much easier to get around.
And then you have today where the sidewalks are nicer, the streets are better maintained, the greenery, the trees and the shrubs and all of the things that make a city nice are maintained much better today.
Currently, Josh works as an editor for a think tank located in the CBD. The 46-year-old is also involved in translation and cultural exchange programs.
Translation to me is not so much about taking things from one language to another. It's about interpreting concepts and making things clear to someone from another cultural context, from another cultural background, especially in the sense of China, because even though we have a lot of exposure to the Tao, right? Or Confucianism, or Buddhism in a general sense, I think there are a lot of things that are unique to China in those contexts, especially in today's China, that need more addressing. They need to be explained more and need to be kind of expanded on for people to really understand what these values and what these concepts mean to Chinese people today.
He is also active on social media, sharing his life stories, insights and perspectives on China. He believes in the power of dialogue and sharing, and he is eager to connect with a wider audience across the world. That's it for today's edition of Footprints. Thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in hearing more about the lives of ordinary but incredible people in China, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just key in Footprints and you can find more stories anytime, anywhere. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.